Children of, I want to talk to your manager parents. What has been your most embarrassing experience? We traveled a lot when we were younger and would skip lines at the airport since we were kids. But now we were all in our early teens, and my mom faked having a heart condition to skip the long line to get on the airplane. Flight attendant would have none of it and told us to go back to the end of the line. I still remember the smiles and looks of everyone there. Story 2. My mom has been this person regularly throughout my life, but I do have one positive story with it. She and I went to eat at Portillo's when I was a teenager, and we sat in the back of the restaurant where it was more private so we can eat in peace. About 10 minutes into our meal, 2 people come into the empty area and sit down 2 tables away from us. Turns out it was a manager and an employee that was getting written up. The manager was being a complete asshat towards the employee, criticizing and belittling them. My mom put down her food and walked over and started yelling at the manager for being such a hole. She went on a rant about how rude and wrong it was of him to do this in front of the public 2 tables away from customers, and really let him have it. She demanded the phone number of the manager above him, and we left after she received it. I was pretty embarrassed at the time, but as I got older, I realized that she was standing up for that employee and how wrong that manager really was. I'm not 100% sure what she did with that phone number because I lived with my dad and I had to go home after that meal. Story 3. Right, so my mom and me went shopping, and she dropped a melon on the way out. She then claimed it was bruised and demanded a full refund. When she refused, she shouted at customer service and demanded the manager. I just sat there with a lost me now expression on my face. After, one of the customer service employees gave me a chocolate bar. So 7 years old me was happy. Story 4. I might be late, but my dad once asked the guy at the Verizon wireless store to give him his own social security number because he asked for my dad's. My dad walked out afterwards with some strangers' number on a Post-it. I was a silent bystander because I really wanted my first phone. Story 5. My mother did this in restaurants non-stop growing up. She would demand to see the manager because my burger, which I asked for medium, had some pink in it. Story 6. I was with my parents on vacation, and the hotel put charges on the bill by accident. My mom marched to the front desk and demanded to see the manager. There was a long line, but she cut right in front of it. The manager wasn't very helpful, probably because she was rude. So my mom went to all the other customers in line and told them that the hotel was a scam, and they were ripping us off with fake charges. She made a scene. The hotel called the police, and we were escorted off the premises by actual cops. I died inside. Story 7. About once a month, my dad gets drunk and calls various customer service centers demanding stuff. Once he finally gets off the phone, frequently 45 minutes later, he spends the next few days telling us all about how he slew the customer service dragon, and boy, people sure don't appreciate their customers nowadays, blah, blah, blah. No, duh, Dad, you're being an a-hole. No one appreciates that. If you've worked for DirecTV customer service anytime since 1996, I apologize on behalf of my dad. Another story for y'all. I also remembered one time McD's was having some kind of 2-for-1 breakfast sandwich deal going on where the total was about $3. He gets his breakfast, drives 25 minutes to work, realizes he's missing one of the sandwiches, and proceeds to call MCD's customer support every evening after work for a week to complain about his wasted $1.50. They gave him apologies, they gave him coupons, but he just wanted to yell. Story 8. My father consistently returns food to grocery stores when he is unsatisfied with the quality. The worst is when he returns the 2 pounds bricks of cheddar cheese because they went moldy before they should have. Story 9. Before Value Village, Savers in the States, I think, changed policies, she would cut tags to get discounts since the cashiers would basically make up whatever price they thought it would be, on the spot. If they highballed it, she would get a manager involved, and I hated that. Story 10. When I was a young child on a long-distance flight, my mother let me and my brother sleep on the floor. For safety reasons, the flight attendants told my mother that we were not allowed to sleep on the floor. She started to argue with the flight attendants, who then turned to the pilots. The pilots threatened to turn the plane around unless we get up from the floor, but she continued to argue. The pilots announced they were about to turn around because of my mother, so all the passengers got pissed. Eventually, she caved in when she had all passengers and flight crew on a Boeing 747 against her. Story 11. Not the child, but I think this fits. I had this awful, annoying, terrible neighbor who, because I'm a giant sucker, I was kind to. She asked me to come with her to dinner because it was her birthday, and I knew I was the only person on the planet who would go with her and go, darn it, it's her birthday. How could I say no? So she and I went, and we brought our kids. All girls. 1 mine, 2 hers. She makes her oldest do her math homework right there at the table. When the child asks her for help, mind you, this is like 3rd grade math, the mom says it's too hard. I end up helping. The waiter is just fine. He comes by and takes our orders. She's already acting weird, but she always acted weird, so I didn't think much of it. Waiter comes by again and asks if we need anything. She dismisses him and waves him off and tells him no. Then, like 30 seconds later, turns to me and is like, "Can you believe how awful the waiter is? He won't even refill my drink." And just goes on about all these issues that literally don't exist. I'm like, "He just asked if you needed anything." She cuts me off. "I'm going to talk to the manager." Oh, she talks to the manager. Like this is the worst experience she's ever had in the history of her miserable existence. I'm in shock. Her kids have their heads down. Mine is oblivious. The manager gives her like half off the meal. Oh, and the kicker. That's my half, so you only need to pay the rest. Oh, thanks. I left a big tip and a note on my receipt telling them. The waiter was great and apologizing for the complaints that were totally not warranted. It was the second most embarrassing restaurant experience of my life. Story 12. My mom used to run restaurants. My stepfather used to be a chef in a high-end restaurant and is the kind of guy who expects to be treated better than he is currently being treated, regardless of whatever that treatment is. They are not fun to go out to eat with. The most embarrassing experience is actually their most embarrassing experience, one where I embarrassed them. My wife and I pride ourselves on being a relief table when we go out to eat. Both of us have been servers, and there's always the counterpoint to the difficult table. That's us. Barring horrible service or bad food, we are super easy customers. Tip well, and try to have a good time with our server. Furthermore, we just treat people nicely. So you can imagine our disdain when my parents act like they're ducking royalty at a dinner service. My wife and I went out to dinner with them. They were being particularly tough. My mom was acting like she was Gordon Ramsay, analyzing the business, critiquing everything down to the amount of bubbles in her seltzer. Looks like it's time to change the CO2. My stepdad was getting more and more heated over stupid things, like the amount of ice in his drink, and how the waitress didn't top off his water that he was barely sipping on fast enough. It came to a head when my stepfather ordered a steak medium. Well, it came back medium well, and for some reason he changed his mind that he wanted it medium rare while it was cooking, and they didn't read his mind. So he gave attitude, as did my mom. They jumped really quickly to demanding free stuff. I'm an adult, and this may be the first time they realize this. I interrupted in front of the server and said something like, "Really? This is what you're doing." "That's what you ordered." I turned to the server and said, "We do not need anything comped." I then pulled out my wallet and handed her my card and said, "This is for the bill. We'll happily wrap up with what we have here. I'm very sorry for their behavior. You're doing great." Then, the line that stung them so deep, they still bring it up years later. "I was taught to treat people nicely, a lesson that seems to be forgotten." "Thank you." They turned red. The server walked away. I looked down and cut my steak and didn't say a word. They were so flabbergasted that the meal was virtually silent, except me, asking my stepfather how his steak was a few minutes later. I signed the check, gave a big tip, and we walked out and said goodbyes. They've been nicer to servers each time that we've gone out since. Story 13. My mother is a nightmare with customer service. Even with the fact that her daughter works in customer service and deals with people like her on the daily. So many incidents stick out in my mind, but one that really embarrassed me was we were at Walmart. The stocker was struggling and dropped their price scanner thing on the ground. I was going to go help her gather her things she was struggling with when my mom came out like a bat out of hell and yelled, "You know, you should pick that up. People could trip." And then she darted off with the cart. I was so embarrassed, I just walked away in shame. And when I pointed it out to my mom, the girl dropped it on accident. She said, "Well, she should be more careful." Story 14. My mom demanded to see a cafe's hygiene certificate when she saw an employee go from cutting cake in the kitchen to handling money at the till, even though the real problem is going the other way. Story 15. My dad just loved to argue, and he loved a deal. We were shopping in a department store, and I found a pair of pants I was mildly interested in. The pants were tagged at, let's say, $40, and the sign on the rack was, "All pants $25. I was mildly interested. I asked the sales clerk if they had them in my size. The clerk said, "Those aren't supposed to be on that rack." My dad lost his crap and insisted on getting the pants for $25 and started asking for a courtesy discount on top of that. Escalated to the floor manager and the store manager. Meanwhile, I didn't want the pants. They were okay pants, I guess. Nothing awesome. I just didn't care very much about them. I was more than happy to move on. I told my dad I didn't want the pants. By then, he didn't care about what I wanted. He wanted the pants at the better price. Eventually, after like an hour of arguing, the store manager said, "We're not giving you the pants at that price. Take them or leave them at $40. So we left them, which suited me just fine, because I didn't want the pants. Story 16. One time I was in a record store with my dad. He bought a record that was €19 and 99 cents. He paid using a €20 bill. The clerk took the money and put it in the register and gave my dad the CD in a plastic bag. I started walking off when I noticed my dad wasn't moving. As I turn around, I hear him say to the record store clerk, "You still have to give me my cent back." The clerk replies that they don't return 1 or 2 cents because they don't accept them and as such, don't have them in the store. My dad replies by saying that is judicially impossible and asks for the manager. To make a long story short, one of the clerks gave my dad a cent from his own wallet. Story 17. I don't like going to restaurants with her. She thinks that because she worked as a waitress for a year 35 years ago, it gives her the right to act like a complete a-hole to them. She also thinks not tipping them will encourage them to get their act together. Joke's on you, Mom. I always find our server after seated, give them a $20, and apologize in advance for your poor behavior. Yes, she knows what I think of it. She doesn't care. She believes she's sticking to her principles, and that tipping poor service, read, never had good service and something will always be wrong, will encourage their laziness. It's not going to stop. If you wait on her, I am very sorry. She waited tables at a Pizza Hut when she was 20. She looks back at her time through rose-colored glasses. I worked hard, went above and beyond to get my tips. Then she yells at the waitress for trying to refill her drinks. Excuse me, did I ask for a refill? Obviously, logic and empathy are not her strong points. Story 18. When I was in high school, I worked at McDonald's. One year, I skipped sports day and decided to work instead because money. I was working in the kitchen when one of the cafe staff came out saying some crazy lady wanted to speak to the manager. I had to witness none other. Then my own mother called my manager a bee-by-faced and go off about the cafe staff. I had to hide in the dry stock until she left story 19. When I was 6, my mom took my brothers and I out to Golden Corral for dinner. She went up to the buffet, got a steak, and came back to the table. She's an avid A1 steak sauce fan and cannot, I repeat, cannot eat steak without it. She poured out the A1 onto her plate, tasted it, and was instantly horrified. She proceeded to pour out the Golden Corral steak sauce right next to the A1, and it matched perfectly. Outraged, she called over a waitress, and eventually the manager showing them her little experiment and how she exposed the great steak sauce fraud of '06. My brothers and I were scarred for the rest of our lives. I still have nightmares about it. Story 20. I worked at Best Buy. I stopped in with my mom one day because she wanted to buy me the Star Wars DVD box set for my birthday. I had a huge crush on the girl that was working the customer service counter. Well, the DVD set rang up $10 more than it was priced, and my mom deliberately didn't say anything until after the transaction so she could claim the effing $5 Michigan scan law bounty. My crush didn't know how to process it, and the manager was busy. So my mom tore into her about how it was her job and how she should understand how to do things at my job. To a girl I liked. My life was misery for a while afterward. Rip my inbox? No. I never got the courage up to ask her out, and she left the store afterwards. Story 21. My mom asked me to call her a taxi via an app. She ended up calling me multiple times, complaining about how the driver didn't use the route she thought was best. She never owned a car and doesn't know how to drive, even though the guy just used the best possible route the navigator suggested. She ended up getting out halfway and using Subway. The driver proceeded to call me in tears, completely shocked, unsure of what he did so wrong, and apologizing. I felt like total crap. I never called her a cab again. Story 22. This is a weird story that had a huge impact on me, and about a parent talking to the manager, but is a little different. Growing up, my dad was sheriff of a small town. I must have been around 9. He was brought in after the previous sheriff was booted out for political reasons, stealing city funds. That was a really unpopular movie, since he was super popular and spread his money all over town and let people get away with murder. That sheriff was out and my dad was brought in. Everybody hated him, in part because they loved the old sheriff, and also because my dad was an outsider. Even though he came from about 2 towns over, he wasn't of their world, so he could never be fit to see over the village. It didn't help that my dad was raging a hole with a stick up his butt for the rules. One day, my dad was dressed in his full uniform and took me alone to the local corner diner, like one of those places straight out of Roadhouse. We sat down and ate the full dinner, and my dad lectured me something about respect and the rules are all we have. Then the waitress came in and dropped the check. My dad looked at it and it said the meal was free. My dad then excused himself and went up to the waitress. I kept to myself and doodled on the napkin, and the next time I looked up, my dad was full-on screaming at the woman. He was straight up shaking. She tried to explain that free meals is how all cops are treated in this town, and my dad was furious that he would get special treatment, that police are put above the normal laws, that the police have rules they must follow, and not accepting kickbacks is one of those rules, and that it especially happened in front of his kid, who he's trying to teach right. Everyone in the diner was quiet and just staring at him. It was a weird situation because it was a moment where my dad showed a lot of integrity, but also a story of a 6 feet 7 inches man with a gun on his belt, screaming at a tiny little waitress. It's stuck in my head as a clear picture of the contradictions that our parents are. Like, a lot of the good comes from them, but at the same time, a lot of the bad. Story 23. My mom needed to return some shirts at the mall because they didn't fit right. It was past the allotted time that she had to return them, so the employee said that there wasn't anything she could do. My mom started screaming at this girl who was probably about 16 or 17, calling her names and demanding to speak to the manager. When the manager told my mom that they couldn't do anything and that the return policy was on the receipt, my mom threw a fit and knocked over a display that was next to the register and stormed out of the store. I was probably 6 or 7 at the time, and I was mortified. I apologized for her behavior and picked up what I could before she started calling for me to follow her. The manager was super sweet to me, though, and told me that I was a good kid and to stick up to my mom when I could get away with it. Story 24. My Mill is truly a Karen. Going out to eat with her is always a nightmare. Her orders have 14 special requests, but she's not at all kind about it. She is defensive from the get-go, like you're an idiot who's already screwed the order up. No dressing, not on the side, nothing. Completely dry. Do you understand? I will send it back. The one I will never forget, though, was dinner at Joe's Crab Shack. In case you've never been, it's one of those places that every so often plays a song that the entire staff is required to drop everything and do a little synchronized dance to. It's quick. Everyone gets a little kick out of it. It's part of the fun. Now my meal Karen knew this. It's not like she'd never been here, but apparently she was not willing to wait 2 extra minutes for her dry salad. So she starts going off as soon as the dancing starts. She gets a manager who clearly knows Karen well and offers a quick apology for doing their job, a discount, and her dry-ass salad. But Karen's not completely satisfied. She tells us that even though dinner for our party of 8 is on her, she's not tipping the waitress 1 penny. She proceeds to get loudly the rest of the meal and antagonize our waitress over petty crap. I worked too many years in customer service and, I'm a decent human being. I made sure to get my bill separate so I could tip for the entire table. I wrote a quick note on the receipt, something along the lines of, "Way to stay positive even when the customer's a git." I was a little afraid of the wrath of Karen. It was one of my first interactions with her too, but when the waitress came and hugged me, Karen and I locked eyes. She knew. I didn't care. Don't be a Karen. Story 25. Not my parent, but grandparent. When I was around 10 years old, my grandmother went out and got us, her, my brother, and me, McDonald's. We got home and we didn't have napkins in the bags. No big deal, right? We have paper towels and napkins in the house. Also, me and my brother are pretty good with not making any messes while we eat. Nope. Grandmother got us in the car, drove back to McDonald's, demanded a manager, and screeched about how upset she was that we didn't get any napkin. I wanted to just melt into the floor and disappear. It's just napkins, Nanny. Story 26. I was 13 when this happened. My mom had made a reservation at a hotel for a trip, but when she got there, the lady said there was some error with the reservation and that my mom's payment didn't go through. So the lady offered us a double bedroom for a discount. Rather than just taking the room, thanking the lady, and leaving, my mom decided the best course of action would be to scream in the middle of a hotel lobby. "Nobody's going anywhere till I get my ducking room." She then proceeded to pester the lady, who clearly couldn't do anything about it, until eventually she called the police on my mom for public disturbance. Mortifying. Story 27. Ugh, my dad. He can be such a... If you get his order wrong, it could be fast food or a nice sit-down restaurant. He often yells at waitstaff if they undercook his steak. It has to be well done, or he claims to have lost his appetite. One time we went to Burger King when I was younger, and we sat down to eat. He took 1 bite of his burger, spit it out, and immediately started guiding about it being undercooked. He cut in front of everyone in line to yell at the cashier. Then he asked who was the cook. When the cook appeared, he launched his burger, hitting the poor kid directly in the face with a lidless burger. He's now banned for life from Burger King. Story 28. Grocery store had this sign up that said if an item rang up higher than an advertised price, it was free. It was the 80s, and stores did stupid crap like this that I never see in stores today. Mom was buying a box of Little Debbie cakes, and they rang up for $2.85 instead of the advertised $2.50. So now Mom wants her free cakes. Cashier doesn't know what to do, summons a manager. Manager tells her to ring up the sale otherwise, and he'll be right back. Comes back and hands my mother 35 cents cheerfully and says, "There you go." My mother points out the sign behind him and he says, "Oh, the last manager put that up. It doesn't make any sense. I'm the new manager and I just haven't had the sign removed yet." It was a printed plastic sign that was screwed into the wall. Mom insists they honor their sign. He says, "Nah." Now up to this point, I, as an adult looking back, am totally on board with Mom's action. Mom gathers her things, decides against taking the Little Debbies on principle, and we get in the car. Mom wordlessly drives downtown to the main store of this 5-store chain, knowing the office is next door. We walk into this perfectly 80s wood-paneled office where my mother asks the secretary to speak to the owner of the store and is permitted to do so since this is a family-owned business and their corporate office is smaller than the row of cubicles my staff occupy at work. Here, my mother unleashes a tirade about how she has lost faith in his brand and how his word is meaningless since they will not honor the sign, etc. This guy stands up, profusely apologizes, validates her anger, and then pulls out his wallet and hands her a $5, along with a promise that he will speak to the manager, and the sign will either be honored or removed. We get home and find that the ice cream we bought melted in the trunk because summer and ruined the cereal and the bread. Story 29. We got ducked once in a Taco Bell drive-thru, not the usual way, which sent my mom into a complete meltdown. The people running the place had, I crap you not, run out of lettuce, and I've never dealt with dumber people. Instead of just telling people they were out and letting it go, they were being idiots and saying, there'll be a small delay. It was a super hot day. The AC was broke. We're exhausted. All we really want is some water, but we're stuck in the drive-thru line waiting and waiting as they try to figure out how to make lettuce out of thin air. You'd think there'd be another bag somewhere or something, but maybe that was too complicated for them. So, 20 minutes into sitting, cooking in the car, trapped between other cars in the drive-thru and unable to go forward or back or even sideways, speaker and signs even if we wanted to jump the curb, and my mother's just cursing up a blue streak about the stupidity of the people involved, screaming her damn head off about just ducking? Make some lettuce-free tacos, you dumb craps. I remember much of this very vividly, as I was about 12 or 13 at the time, and I was learning all sorts of new words and phrases. My little brother took notes. That's when we see some Taco Bell teenage idiot employee boy make a break from the building and go sprinting across the parking lot over towards the grocery store across the way. They sent out a duckhead to go buy some lettuce. The cursing rises a few notches. Nobody cares about the ducking lettuce. Just let us out of here, you little, etc. Volume, variety, viciousness. Mom hits all the good verse. 45 minutes or so after we got into this, the car at the window, a couple ahead of us, which is probably the real villain of the story. Why wouldn't they ducking leave without lettuce? What the heck? Finally gets handed something. And they don't leave immediately. They have to ducking talk for a while before they drive off. My mom is a volcano past. It's sell by date and just frothing at the mouth now. But eventually, they pull off and leave and we can pull up to the window. What I've left out of this story is, my family for a few years would participate in parades as clown, handing out candy to the kids at the side of the road and dancing our way through the parade route to the rocking tune of Celebrate Good Time Tonight on repeat. And this day was one of those days. We were all in full costume, makeup, super baggy rainbow pants, rainbow wig, big flower on the suspenders, big old ridiculous shoes, the whole deal. So the car finally pulls away ahead of us, and my mom, who for the last hour has been a spitting bulldog of bile and vindictive rage and a constant criticizer of the drive-thru window, people's ancestry and breeding, realizes she has to pull up and face them in full clown regalia to get our stupid tacos. I remember that moment when Mom realized it. The mix of anger, embarrassment, ridiculousness of it, and eventually the humor of the whole situation went through her and she started laughing so hard, she was crying. And when the people behind us started honking for us to just go, they'd been waiting too. It just got funnier somehow. So now Mom is not just a crazy angry lady. She's a crazy angry clown lady, and more than that, she's a crazy clown lady who's been sweating and now crying too. So she's not even a crazy clown lady with good makeup anymore. She's just a wreck of a crazy clown lady, which makes her laugh even harder. My brother and I thought she was going to die. I mean, she couldn't breathe in those outfits. The heat? Hell. The whole reason we pulled into this place was we needed water. To give Mom credit, she didn't just squeal out of there, flipping everyone the bird. She got herself together, pulled up to the window, looked up at the girl through the car window with her ruined clown makeup and big rainbow wig, and handed her the money very calmly, said, "Thank you," and took the bag. And we drove off. I hope to hell they remember us. I know I'll never forget the look on the drive-thru girl's face as we drove up, and she started to try to apologize for the delay and just stopped, staring at us. Good day. Story 30. My dad would sometimes do this at restaurants. If the server was too slow or the food was wrong, especially multiple times in the same meal, he was totally right in being frustrated, because sometimes this was extreme, but we all hated it. The worst time was when we were in our favorite restaurant. My mom literally said, "I'm not doing this," and gathered up us 3 kids, and we went to the car. Story 31. Not me, but my sister-in-law. Her stepdad and mom took the family out to eat at a Red Lobster. They get there and it is super busy. So the stepdad walks up to the host and says, "Yes, we have a reservation." The problem is, Red Lobster, or at least that one, doesn't take reservations. The host explains this and says it is going to be 20-minute wait for seating. Her stepdad flipped out and started screaming that he had called 3 hours beforehand and made a reservation. The host politely told him this was not possible as they do not take reservations again. He continues to scream at the guy and says he wants to talk to a manager. So the manager comes out and she tells him the same thing. They don't take reservations, so it's not possible that he had made one. He continues to cause a scene, and people started leaving just to get away from this toxic guy. Finally, the manager says, "Fine, we will put you ahead of everyone else that has been patiently waiting their turn." He says, "Thank you." They get seated. Once they get to the table and the waitress walks away, he slyly winks and says to my brother and the rest of the family, "That is how you get things done. I wasn't going to wait 20 minutes. My brother refused to eat or order for fear of getting food that had been spit. On story 32, one time my granddad got a sausage roll at a football match during halftime. When he got back to his seat, he found it was overdone. The pastry was quite burned. The man was irate. He didn't take it back straight away as the second half was about to start, but he spent much of the second half angrily lamenting his savory snack letdown. So he takes it home, calls the customer service number on the back. I assume he had a few choice words for the poor soul on the other end, but I wasn't present for this, and keeps the remainder of the sausage roll in the freezer for the next couple of weeks. Skip ahead to the next match day. My granddad tells me we're heading out early so he can have his sausage roll replaced. The customer service line told him to go to kiosk 3 at the front of the ground next to the ticket office. When we arrive, however, the shutters are down at the food place. The old man looks around, growling and turning red in the face, stamps right over to window number 3 of the ticket office, and slams his frozen, burned sausage roll down like a ducking, flaky gauntlet. At this point, I'm trying to convince him the ticket office was a completely different department to the catering concession, but my granddad was having none of it. The lady working the ticket window continually attempted in vain to convince him the same. They sell match tickets, not hot snacks, but this just got him angrier and angrier. Across comes a colleague behind the glass. Now there's just 2 people to rage at. Then a head steward comes to attempt to defuse the situation, and my granddad begins to wave the burnt sausage roll in this man's face. I was actually surprised he didn't whack him with it. At this point, I'm mortified by the whole affair, wishing I'd have stayed back at the house until nearer kickoff. Eventually, after an hour or so, the shutters come up on the food concession. Fella at the counter goes, "You must be Mr. Alleginji," and calmly resolves the situation, dispatching a freshly baked sausage roll with the steady hands of a surgeon. My granddad is completely satisfied with the result of his hour of insolent rage. As we're walking away, he turns to me and says, "That's how you get these things sorted." Story 33. I grew up in a smaller town right on the cusps of its big growth boom. We knew our town had finally made it when we got an Olive Garden. We used to eat there 3 times a month. My mom and I would always split an entree, and my dad would get his own. We knew the rule: if you're splitting an entree and you get more than one of the family-style bowls of salad, then you'll get charged an extra $4 for the extra person, which is fair. 2 entrees come with 2 unlimited salads. Well, one day my dad decides he wanted more salad, only he wants the additional salad. But the waitress said if she refills the bowl, that we will be charged the extra $4. Well, lo, and behold, my parents threw the biggest tantrum because only he wanted the additional salad. They demanded to speak to a manager, and the manager explained the rule, which we knew, but offered to comp the extra salad just to get my parents to stop yelling, and they did. When our bill came, the manager comped my dad's entree and the additional salad fee. Well, my mom got up, interrupted the manager while he was talking to other guests, and threw the check in his face and asked, "What's this?" She was furious that he comped my dad's meal. He ate the meal, therefore we would like to pay for it. She wouldn't stop raising her voice until she was allowed to pay for the meal, but not the salad. The manager was confused but obliged. When they brought the change, the manager slipped a few free appetizer coupons. My mom ripped them up and threw them on the ground as she left. Safe to say I didn't eat out with them for at least a month, and I still refuse to go to Olive Garden with them. Story 34. Not long ago, my mom asked to treat my wife and I to lunch at Outback Steakhouse. We get there and order. My mom orders iced tea with extra lemon tea, shows up with 1 lemon. Usually no big deal, right? Just ask for more. Well, instead of doing that, my mom turns to the waiter and says, "What? No extra lemon? You fail as a waiter. No brownie points for you." The dude sits there for a moment and then says rather flatly, "I'll be right back with more lemon." I turn to my mom and I'm like, "That's how you get your food spit in. You've just sent the message that this will be a crafty tipping table and he's going to totally focus elsewhere." She argues that, well, it should have inspired him to work harder to impress us. I think from that point I just mentioned that, from his end, his odds of making money are now higher at some other table. It's just how people work well. She goes to the bathroom and cries. She comes back and makes some super complicated order. I texted my wife, who was sitting right next to me, and say, "This dude is going to butcher that order on purpose." Food comes out. Ours is correct and perfect. Hers is all ducked up. Basically, a totally wrong order. She asked for it to be fixed. A bit more subdued this time. It comes out technically correct, but obviously carelessly prepared, cooked. I chuckle inside. Here's the insane part. After all of this, she turns to us and says, "I was right about that waiter. He sucks at his job." It's like, no, dude, your behavior made him not give a duck about you. After being a total a-hole and paying the price, she walked away feeling validated and haughty. I slipped in a nice tip with a "sorry for my mom" note. Story 35. When I was around 6 or 7 and we'd been driving all day through Florida to see my grandma. Because of various travel hangups, we ended up getting to the hotel at 3 a.m. to discover that there were no pillows in our room. My dad took myself and my mom down there and asked the concierge what he was going to do about it. The man said he didn't know what was to be done because all the extra pillows were for guests. He actually asked, "What if someone needs them?" This is why my dad blew up, pointing out that that exact situation was happening in that moment and started going off on this guy. First time I ever heard my dad curse. Story 36. Not exactly the question, but my dad was great with those customers. We had a small family business selling and installing fireplaces. For context, he, on more than one occasion, when getting the customer call or come in, after the installers had finished up and left the job site, to get about one of the men being rude or something, he could get this look of grave concern on his face. He would then go into a backstory, saying things like, "Oh no, not again," or do the open mouth, closed teeth, inhale thing and just tsk, tsk, tusk, and then start on with some nonsense about having told the guy before that it was his last warning and go on about how he was going to have to let them go. The blood draining from people's faces or the dead silence on the other end of the phone line was magical, followed by the customer frantically explaining that maybe it wasn't that bad or blaming themselves. He was never going to fire anyone, but he'd find out real quick who was just complaining for fun. Many of those customers have no qualms about getting the employee in trouble, but in general, folks don't want to jeopardize people's livelihood. Story 37. I was out to breakfast with my mom, and our waitress straight up disappeared. We sat for a good 30 minutes after having ordered nothing but eggs. It was an off time, so the diner was pretty quiet. It was as if our waitress had just evaporated. Naturally, my mom asked someone if we could speak with the manager. She stops by, my mom lets her know what's happened, and asks if she can check on our waitress, our food, etc. 10 minutes later, the manager shows up with our food and the waitress in tow. She put our food down, then proceeded to rip into the waitress. This poor woman broke down in tears, apologizing profusely. We felt awful, didn't even bother finishing our food. Once the manager was out of sight, my mom found the waitress, gave her a hug, and a larger tip than usual. It was rough, leaving us both sufficiently embarrassed. Story 38. Oh, Lottie. My mom is one of those. But she's not the type to push her way through lines and would only talk to a manager if really need be. But due to her stern and scary personality, she can really draw attention to herself. One incident when I was around 8 or 9 was when we had to pay our immigration fees. This wasn't in the US BW, but in the Philippines. We aren't Filipino citizens, so we need to go both to the US Embassy, then the local immigration offices to pay our yearly dues while living there. The immigration processing line was long, like DMV, long and slow. Not to mention the office was infamous for having really lazy workers who only speed up the paperwork when there's a bribe. My mom, after 2 hours of waiting, had enough. She actually knew the vice chief at that time, went to school with him. And this is how the conversation goes, Mom. "I want to speak to the Chief Wiggum," Simpson name here. Officer scoffed at Mom. "Sorry, but you can't just meet." Mom cuts her off and leans in a low drawl. "Tell Chief Wiggum, Marge is here. He know who I am." Looks at me then, the officer. He knows who we are. Officer had a look of panic, asks a coworker to watch his booth, and leaves. About 10 minutes later, this jolly fellow, bit of sweat on his brow, comes by, hugs my mom, and gave his officers a look. Mom took me by the hand, and we were ushered to his office. In the 15 minutes we were there, our papers were personally processed by him. In the next few years, we would just walk into his office to get this done, and had this perk till he passed away. Learned later that day of my memory. Chief Wiggum was in a board meeting when he got called and abruptly left. Due to my mom's actions, it was assumed she was his mistress, and me, the love child. He got quite the teasing of a lifetime back of that. My mom was the alumni secretary of her school, is also one of the most beautiful in her class, and is a badass. I never knew Chief Wiggum has been to our house many times during reunions. Many of my mom's classmates moved to being big bosses in guffed offices, and she pulled this prank a few times, much to the amusement of her friends. They love her to bits. Story 39. Okay, so we were going to a theme park in the capital of the country. I must have been around 19, which makes my one sister 16, and the youngest around 9. My dad had been planning this for a year, and we were psyched to go. After you go into this place, you see a huge lake, and on each side, there are several shops, a restaurant there, a souvenir shop there, and also, there is a Build-A-Bear shop. This shop is not a part of the park itself, but it does have an entrance from the park. Anyway, my dad didn't have custody of my sister at the time, and only saw her very sporadically. This was by his own choice, since his anxiety meant he couldn't care for her properly. She lived with a foster family. This was one of maybe 3 times a year. He got to actually take her somewhere, so this trip was a big deal. He told her she could have one thing from the park. Whatever she wanted, he would pay for it. And being a 9-year-old girl, she said she wanted a Build-A-Bear. My dad was unfamiliar with the concept of Build-A-Bear, so he didn't know that the price of the bear isn't the total price. On top of it comes the clothes, the shoes, etc. So the shop person takes my sister through the whole thing, stuffing, putting the heart in, etc., and rings up. The total, my dad totally lost it. Like, red in the head, screaming at this poor girl in the shop, lost it. And I felt so embarrassed. Firstly, this girl didn't make the price. Secondly, this was the trip of the year. It was all 4 of us, for the first time in forever. And thirdly, you don't yell at people like that. I get that he was angry since he didn't know the process and felt cheated. And also, he felt backed into a corner since he had promised my sister that she could have anything. But you don't do that, ever. Luckily, the rest of the trip went by without a hitch, and my youngest sister doesn't remember this happening. She has 2 Build-A-Bears now, and she named each of them after one of her sisters. Story 40. My mom once called Domino's regional corporate office or some crap because a pizza I ordered for her that I paid for was too expensive. She did get 4 free pizza vouchers out of it, but I'm so glad I was not around for the embarrassment of it all. I ordered it online from my job in the next state. Why? Because she wanted pizza. Story 41. It was at a TGI Fridays in KDTX. This waiter was amazing. He was working 8 tables that I could count and was managing all of them flawlessly. Drinks never got below full at any table. He was always attentive and prompt, friendly. Just a textbook example of the perfect waiter. He impressed my dad so much that my dad asked if he could speak to a manager. Of course, the waiter immediately asks if anything is wrong, since that's the only time someone asks. My dad tells him no. It's to make sure that management knows what excellent service he's providing. The waiter thanks us and says he'll get a manager over as quickly as he can. We wait for about 10 minutes before this middle-aged greaseball of a manager saunters over and starts asking my dad how the waiter screwed up. My dad is not the most patient of people, and we were kind of in a hurry to get home. So the 10-minute wait was rubbing him wrong. But when the manager immediately acted like the guy was a screw-up, my dad lost it. He told the manager that the waiter had done everything perfectly, and that's why he tipped the guy $15 on a $35 ticket. He also went on to say that the manager needed to be more respectful of his staff and gave the guy an ass chewing for presuming that the employee had screwed up before that moment. I thought that my sister and I were the only ones he would scream at when he was upset. It was somewhat embarrassing to see my dad yell at this guy, but he did it for a good reason. Story 42. Not me, but one that I witnessed. I was at a cell phone store a few years ago. This was when phones first started to become water resistant. A kid had apparently gone swimming with his phone all day, and the phone had some discoloration to the screen and the touch screen wasn't working correctly. The kid obviously knew he screwed up, and he kept asking the mom if they could just leave, that the phone still worked, and he would survive. The mom didn't even try to be civil. She came in and immediately started to be an abusive customer. I remember she laughed as she said, "Oh, you're going to hate me. You should just get your manager now." Story 43. My parents are terrible tippers. They genuinely believe that excellent service, it's 10% tip. I have explained to them numerous times how servers tip out, etc., and they still think anything over 10% is generous. Story 44. My dad is a pretty big hothead and thinks yelling loudly at customer service employees will solve things. So one time, I brought my laptop into a Best Buy for a quick fix. They said I could come get it the next day after it was finished. We show up the next day and they give me a laptop that is 100% not mine. I just let them know politely that there's been a mistake and it's not my computer. They apologize and go looking for mine. 10 minutes later, they can't find it. Cue rage machine. Father, you better find his laptop or there are going to be problems. No mention of what kind of problems, just one of those "I'm screaming it sounds threatening" sentences. They explain they will keep looking and call me when they have found it, but that they will call me every day with an update. I'm totally fine with this being a relatively laid-back person. I was only worried I wouldn't have a laptop for my first week of college. Anyways, they called every day. And every day my father would get on the phone and yell about how unbelievably stupid you'd have to be to lose a computer in the store. This happened for about 4 days. every time they would get off the phone. With my father, I would call them back myself to apologize for that and calmly say, "Don't worry about it. I'm sure it'll turn up soon." Guy on the phone was very gracious. I wasn't screaming at him and told me if they didn't find it by end of day tomorrow, I could come in and pick a laptop and they would write it off to replace mine. Well, they never found my computer, but I did get a much nicer one for free, which I honestly think, had I not called to apologize on my father's behalf, every day I wouldn't have been given the option to choose any laptop to replace it. Story 45. Brother 13, sister 9, cousin 1, 10, cousin 2, 11, and I 11. Went to go eat at the nearby DQ by our house. Brother orders first and gets ice cream. The rest of us get burgers. Brother regrets his order and asks to trade, but none of us wanted ice cream. So he decides to ask the cashier to switch his order. I tell him he can't do since he already ate some of it, but he ignores me and asks anyways. They say no because since he ate some. Brother gets mad and walks home and the rest of us eat our food and then, oh boy, my mom arrives, pissed off, and asks to speak with the manager. Manager comes up and says they can't switch his order because he already ate some of it. Mom waves the ice cream in manager's face, demanding to switch his order. Again, she says no. I'm super embarrassed and focus on eating my food. Now, I didn't see exactly what happened, but cousin 1 did and his jaw drops and says something along the lines of, "Your mom just shoved the ice cream at the lady's face." We all look back and poor manager lady had ice cream all over her face and hair. Mom grabs brother by the arm and nearly sprinted out of the store. I almost sank to the floor in embarrassment. As the manager was wiping the ice cream off, she points to us and angrily asks us to come over. We booked it, abandoning our food and ran home. Dad noticing us asking us what happened and we tell him. He gets mad, turns to Mom and says, "That was not necessary." But Mom wasn't having any of it and blamed it all on them. Brother was red in the face. I don't think he expected that to happen. About 10 minutes later, with parents arguing about it, the police show up with a little sister. We all forgot about her. She was mad at us for leaving her behind. The cops basically told us we were banned from entering that DQ. All of us glare at brother who looked mortified. I don't know if my mom got in trouble. If she did, it was well-deserved. But it was so embarrassing and unnecessary. To this day, I haven't been back to that DQ. And that was almost 20 years ago. I always cringe a bit whenever I think about it. Story 46. I think every memory I have of my mom is her yelling at a customer service employee, either on the phone or in their face. I always felt bad for the employees. I remember at least one instance in which I felt really embarrassed. I did an online program that was geared towards new drivers. It was all about driving safety and took forever to do. At the end of the course, the young driver had the opportunity to get lower insurance rates. So I had to call a customer service representative and confirm personal information, as well as answer some things from the course in order to get the rates. My mom kept insisting I put the phone on speaker. Every time I did, the rep would tell me to take it off of speaker. My mom would then try to follow me around the house trying to listen in, and the rep could hear her and said she needed to stop. My mom got mad at the rep, and I ended up not getting the lower rates on my insurance because the rep was fed up. Story 47. Oh, I have so many. My personal favorite is the Dairy Queen drive-thru incident. My mom thought she was being overcharged 12 cents and freaked out at the poor Dairy Queen drive-thru dude. He was probably in high school, and here's my adult mom screaming at him for overcharging her like 12 cents. Some of her exact words were, "Are you on crack? What the duck is wrong with you? I can't believe this is happening right now. You're wasting my time," etc. The usual flip out. Also, she mentioned her work. She loves bringing up that she works at a certain big business, as if that gives her more authority to be a git to people. But the Dairy Queen incident was special, because just before going to get ice cream, my best friend and I had spent some quarters on giant fuzzy mustache stickers. So there we are in the back seat, rubbing our giant fake mustaches and staring at this kid getting screamed at by my mom. Dairy Queen dude was holding in laughter the entire time. I hope our mustaches made the raging mom incident less terrifying for him. Oh, and she did demand the manager, who just shrugged her off and didn't care. I wonder how much spit and food we have ate because of her. Story 48. I was young, and my mom and stepdad took us to McDonald's. Somehow a nail or something got stuck in the tire, which caused a flat. I'm not sure if it happened in the lot or not, but they were convinced it was. They went to talk to the manager. I don't remember exactly what their demands were, but they didn't get them. They literally went into the street waving people away, saying that they were closed because they were mad. It just seemed like a ridiculously excessive thing to do. Story 49. I was 14 and my mom did this crap at BK on my birthday because she didn't think the girl had the right attitude. I remember being like, "Please don't do this." Even though I agreed the girl had a nasty attitude. Mom's partially deaf and the girl refused to speak louder or more clearly, even after being told that, plus rolling her eyes and twice getting the order wrong because I didn't want a scene. My mom was determined to speak with the manager though, and wouldn't take our food until she did. Instead of getting the manager, the girl decided she wanted to come around the counter and scream in my mom's face for being a deaf old git. She swung on my mom and I jumped on the girl with my brother to keep her off my mom. She bit me twice. Police got called. We were banned from BK after the manager came out and took the employee's side. Cops did nothing because the girl was 16. Never been more embarrassed or angry. Ruined my whole birthday. I should have said I wanted McDonald's instead. Oh well. Story 50. About the only thing my dad and I have in common is we like to go thrifting. Garage sales, estate sales, antique stores, and charity thrift shops thing is, we do it for different reasons. I do it for the fun of finding something unusual and offbeat. Dad does it because he likes to find bargains, to be one up on the suckers who didn't know what they had. So I was mortified when Dad went to the charity shop checkout and guided for 10 minutes about being overcharged 50 cents. Left him in the store alone. When he finally came out, I went in and dropped $5 in the donation jar and apologized for my whole father. Story 51. My mom came to my school because she thought I was lying about what I got on my SATs. She didn't think I was that smart. No one in my school would give her that information because they didn't have to. She got to my principal and said, "I want to speak to your manager," in front of me. He refused and they argued for a while. The principal knew I was an okay guy, and the score I told my mother was legit. It was really embarrassing though. Story 52. This is my favorite example of my mom being an absolute wacko. We are from NY, and I met her in LA, where she was vacationing for a few days. There is a restaurant we had been to before and really wanted to visit again. I guess you could say it's a hot spot. This is lunchtime, no reservation. We arrive at the restaurant and there are a bunch of open tables. It's early, probably before noon. My mom asks for a table and they say, "We're so sorry, but if you don't have a reservation, we unfortunately do not have any tables for you. If you'd like, you can leave your phone number and we can call you if we have any cancellations." My mom starts huffing and puffing, pointing at all the tables, which are of course reserved for 12 o'clock and 12:30 reservations, but are currently empty. She's making a whole scene and just storms out of the restaurant. I try to explain to her the way restaurants work, that there are empty tables because other people are going to be coming in later with reservations. She is storming down the block just ranting. "No, you don't get it. I've worked in restaurants my whole life. This is what they do. It's a lie. It's like a nightclub. They don't like the way we look. This is ridiculous." While she's ranting, the hostess comes running down the block. They had a cancellation and they could seat us immediately. I was humiliated. I didn't even want to eat there anymore. Long story short, I never take my mom to any restaurant I like. Story 53. I remember when I was like 6, my whole family, all 6 of us, went to the dollar store. I don't remember much, but I remember when we were in the car about to go home, my mom was looking at the receipt and she noticed that the cashier gave them $1 less in change than they were supposed to. My mom was furious and made us all go back inside. She started yelling at the teenage girl cashier about how they're bad people and this is wrong, etc., etc. Then, the girl said something like, "Okay," and then rolled her eyes while giving back the correct change. This made my mom flip. She started screaming at the top of her lungs about how they're evil and how she needs to fix her attitude and stuff like that. Another one was when we recently had a fire in our house. A bunch of ash and fire extinguisher stuff got all over the house, and we got a cleaning company to clean the house. It was like 2 dudes and 2 girls. I don't know what exactly triggered my mom, but apparently she didn't like the way they were cleaning. She started yelling at them and lecturing them that they should know how to clean, especially the girls because they're female. She then showed them how to do it whole, continuing to yell at them. A lot of the bad outbursts were the same way she treated us when she got mad. She's got a lot calmer since then, though. Story 54. I wasn't there for this, but my mom once had a lengthy email argument of complaints to a hotel's restaurant because their smothered chicken wasn't smothered enough. One such email included the dictionary definition of smothered. Story 55. Spent 2 hours in the lobby of the MGM Grand in Vegas, circa January 99. We had arrived with family friends to attend a hairstylist convention. Friend's mom owned a salon and mine managed it. And we discovered our family suites had a window view of their dumpster area. About a minute after walking into the room, cue my mother storming back down to the lobby and demanded the head manager at the front desk switch our rooms immediately. Watching her make a scene and get even angrier once security was threatened on her was mortifying. I was 10, tired and embarrassed, and just wanted us all to have fun. Luckily, the head manager offered a vacant presidential suite for all of the trouble after getting my mother to calm down. Looking back, I realized he did it just to shut her up and restore calm back to the lobby for other guests. To this day, I am overly nice to retail and food service workers to compensate for her behavior, even though she's not even around anymore. I never want to be that person. Story 56. My dad is kind of a drunk, a rich drunk. We were out at an extremely nice restaurant in our small town, a very foodie and chic place that had only been open for a couple of years and had since become my favorite restaurant. I was sitting at a table with my siblings and cousin, all of us college age, while my dad was sitting with my aunt and uncle and mom at a table nearby. By the time we get our food, the parents are still sitting there, chugging their wine with no food. My dad starts getting upset. I hear him call the waitress over. She brings them some bread and leaves them alone. We finish our meals and our parents are still sitting there without food and several empty bottles of wine. My mom is essentially fall asleep at this point. My father, furious, starts banging his fists on the table, shaking all of the silverware. The waitress goes into the kitchen to find the chef, but she is apparently taking too long. My dad storms into the kitchen. I hear him screaming at the top of his lungs like a ducking toddler. The chef calmly, politely walks him back to his table. He sits him down and, in the calmest voice possible, says, "Duck you, sir. Now get the duck out of my restaurant." We have not been back since. Story 57. As the manager in a lot of these stories, I just want to say that the amount of time I have to encourage people to tell me when things are wrong greatly outnumbers the times people demand to see me without warrant. Yes, of course. I have had people make a beeline to me and start a conversation with, "Are you the manager?" Well, unleash torrent of beast anger. But I also bartend periodically and usually have to encourage my patrons to send something back if they don't like it. It's alarming how often someone will get an undercooked burger or a drink they don't like and would rather sit quietly in fear of being that person than to commit to letting me fix the problem. So those of you reading and saying, "I'll never complain," please understand, my job is to make you happy with your service and to ensure you want to come back. If something is wrong, we are not mind readers, tell us. I'd rather you mention it to me, a server or a bartender, than to feel bad and never come back. Correcting a mistake is not the same as getting me out because your mid-rare burger has some pink or your empty vodka tonic was too weak. Story 58. When I was 10 or 11 years old, my whole family, 2 brothers, mom and dad, had all been going to the same nice old lady for haircuts for a few years. She usually did cuts for all 3 boys consecutively. We got to know her pretty well as she was super chatty. My mom was and is very organized and always called in a few days in advance to schedule appointments. So she called in and a new receptionist answered the phone and took her appointment down, or so the receptionist said. We arrived and my mom learned that the receptionist had not written down the appointment. We would have to wait a few minutes while our favorite stylist finished with her current client. My mom somewhat calmly said, "Well, if it's not written down, I guess we aren't coming back," then promptly left with us. The stylist even sent us a card a few days later. My mom had none of it. I think my mom was having a bad day. Story 59. I was sitting in the library in middle school with my mom and my advisor getting my assessment done to transition to high school. A bunch of other kids were at other tables with their parents and advisors. We were having a decent conversation, but as soon as my advisor went over my test results for math, my mother blew up. I scored in the 99th percentile, ahead of kids in the honors classes. My mom was screaming and ranting in front of everyone else there. All the students were looking at us. She wanted to know why they had held me back, why they never put me in one of the high school math classes. And when the advisor recommended not sending me to summer school to complete algebra, it just made her furious. I remember seeing my crush's face, and when he locked eyes with me, I died a little in that chair. Thing was, I wasn't some math genius. She just forced me to learn algebra in my free time. That year, so they couldn't have figured it out because it didn't happen until a few months prior, and she knew it. Story 60. Once my mom and I were at an awesome Chinese place. They had the best pork buns. So I was sitting there eating my pork bun, and then the restaurant owner comes up to ask if we would like anything else. Me, being about 7, pointed to the kids' drink menu at a drink called the Fire Truck. That sounded like an absolutely amazing drink. We ordered that, and I kept eating my pork bun. When the drink arrived, it was a bright orange Fanta with lemonade and ice cream drink. My mom was shocked. She asked for the manager, of course she did, and complained that it looked nowhere near a fire truck. Deep sigh. Please end me. Story 61. My dad started throwing a huge fit at movie theater snack prices, which, to be fair, were utterly ridiculous. It was $6 for a bottle of water. So yeah, you can rage at that, but don't shout down the 15-year-old cashier who I can almost guarantee has zero control over the pricing. If she did, she would probably lower it so she would get shouted at less. Story 62. Mom bought a pair of boots at a large fancy department store. Wore them every day for approximately 6 months. Wore them in the rain a few times, and the soles were eventually starting to come loose due to wear. While wearing the boots, she marches into the store, takes them off at the counter, plonks them down on the counter, and demands a refund or a new pair because the quality of the shoes were not up to par, arguing that if it were, the soles wouldn't have started coming loose. Note, she no longer has the receipt at this point, but argues the boots have the store logo on the bottom so she doesn't need one. She proceeds to argue for almost 20 minutes, refuses to budge, demands to see the manager. A queue has formed at this point and everyone is staring. The manager caves. He walks to the back, gets a new pair of boots, and brings them to my mom. She puts them on right there at the counter and marches back out of the store as if nothing happened. Story 63. My mom constantly does this, but one time really sticks out. We went to a local Mexican restaurant, and as we were paying for the food, she tried to use a coupon. The cashier said they wouldn't accept the coupon, and my mom was furious. She demanded that the manager come out and accept the coupon. She caused a massive scene in the restaurant, and it lasted at least 5 minutes. As the cashier was getting the manager, I decided to look at the coupon. It was for a totally different Mexican restaurant in the area, and my mom wasn't wearing her glasses. The cashier and manager both came back, my mom apologized, and they ended up accepting the coupon. Story 64. In this case, I feel it was justified, but one time as a 14-year-old, a store tried to say that I was stealing a lip liner as my mom and I were walking out of the store. It was my chapstick that they didn't even sell at that store. My mom went off on them. It felt good to know someone had my back. TBH, as I've gotten older, I've realized my mom just expects a standard, and if it's not being met, she communicates it reasonably, if a little tersely. I, on the other hand, am just less confrontational by nature, and will likely just brush a lot of stuff off as a customer. Story 65. Not my parents, but I was once out to dinner with my brother-in-law and his family. Our meals all came out at almost random times, instead of all together. My brother-in-law demanded to talk to the manager because it was unacceptable that food come out at different times. And he said something about how he hopes they don't expect us to pay for the meal. He gave a big speech about how we came out so we could eat together, and he knows this is unacceptable because he used to be a waiter, etc. I was mortified because I didn't think it was that big of a deal. Story 66. Well, when I was 10, my mom got a phone for Christmas, and it had a warranty on it. A little later, my mother threw it on the ground and called the company asking for a full refund, plus a new phone because they gave me a broken one. After a few weeks, a company staff came to our house and asked my mom what happened. She said that the phone you sold us was broken and that I was heartbroken. He gave us a refund, but not another phone. My mom started yelling and told him that she would call the police for harassing me. She never did. Recently, I asked her about it, and she said, I have no memory of any of that happening. Story 67. My dad was always running late and very frantic and upset when I was growing up. One evening on our way somewhere, he ordered a bunch of food at a fast food drive-thru window, asking that his burger not have mayonnaise on it. As he began to roll forward, he quickly checked and realized they had put extra mayonnaise on it. This prompted my dad to speed devilishly around the fast food joint, pull back through the drive-thru, and hurl the burger splat at the closed drive-thru while cursing their incompetence. As an 8-year-old, this sort of behavior left a lasting impression with me. And to this day, it's very hard to rile me up because I never want to be like the man he was that day. Story 68. I haven't spoken to my mom in years, but she is 100% one of these people. One of the most cringy things I can think of. Right around 11 September, I guess. There was the whole anthrax in the mail thing going on. My mom ordered stamps through the mail. The stamps were delivered, along with a little note that said something about them having a powder coating on them to absorb moisture and ensure they don't lose their adhesive. My mom, who probably didn't even notice the powder, calls the USPs and complains about how someone mailed her anthrax with her stamps. And when that went nowhere, she contacted all the local news outlets and had a press conference in our front yard, where she went on about why the USPs would try and poison her. Story 69. My mother ranting to all and sundry she was going to get the brand new Walmart supercenter in our town shut down because a cashier closed her register as we were walking up. Apparently she could do this because she knew people on the internet. It was 1998. 14-year-old me was mortified. What's your actually I am the manager story? Story 1. I ran an ice cream shop. I must have had to say actually I am the manager at least once a week. My favorite was this woman I eventually banned from the shop. She would come in with her husband and crafty kids. Then she would try to order a large, 3 scoops, and ask me to put it in 3 single scoop cups, but only charge for the large. I said no. You either order 3 single scoops or you order a large. The difference in cost is quite a bit, but it's fairly standard for companies to do it this way. I wasn't having it. She got pissy that I wouldn't do it. First, she said, well, the manager let me do it last week. No, I didn't, I told her flatly. Well, then whoever was working let me do it, and they said they were the manager. No, they didn't. I believe my workers over you. Well, I want to talk to the manager. I am the manager. You're talking to me. I said no. Fine. And she and her little family stormed out without any ice cream. No skin off my back. She was rude to me and my workers. I wasn't going to let her treat us that way. Then she proceeds to call the shop the next day, when I'm working again. As the manager, I worked a lot. She said, hello, I need to speak to the manager. Speaking. How can I help you? I was in there yesterday and some little git lied and said she was the manager, but she wouldn't let me get what I wanted. That git was me. You're banned from our location. Don't come back. Bonus Justice Boner. She tried to call corporate to report me. Corporate outsources complaints to the manager with the highest rating in the area, which was me. So when she called corporate to complain about me, she also got me. I wrote up the details of the conversation and forwarded all of her messages to the district manager, and he agreed with my decision and allowed me to send her an email officially banning her from the store. Story 2. I was the manager at an EB Games back in the day. This was probably about 2000 to 2001. I was there for the launch of the PS2 and Diablo 2, two biggest events I can remember. We had an older lady come in one day and wanted to return a system she had bought for her son. She claimed he had gotten bad grades in school and was returning it as a punishment. She handed me this ridiculously old and beat-up cardboard box. I opened it to find a dirty, dusty, Cheeto fingerprint-covered swan. I knew that the original PlayStation launched in 1994, and now I feel super old. So what I was looking at in the box was at least 6 years old. I paused, looked back at her, and for whatever reason asked if she had the receipt. She actually did. Sure enough, it had the date printed on it, and it was from sometime in '94. I still hadn't said anything more. I was just looking at the mess in front of me when she spoke up and said something along the lines of, "And I'll just take the cash back? That will be fine." I laughed, which was probably my first mistake, and said, "I'm sorry, but I don't think I'll be able to return this. This is 6 years old and clearly used." She tried to argue that she had bought it here at the store, and the manager at the time told her she could return it for any reason, and went on this crazy diatribe about her kid being bad, etc., etc. It went on for a good 5 to 10 minutes. When she was done, I just flipped the receipt over and read her the EB return policy. 30 days from date of purchase for unopened merchandise, etc. She completely lost it. It escalated so quickly, I contemplated calling mall security, and the police. She wasn't having it. Then I told her she could sell the system back to us. It was worth about $40 at the time, which would have given her something, but she wasn't biting on that one. She asked for the manager, demanded to see the manager, wouldn't rest until she told the manager how rude I had been. I was pretty much a saint for most of this, and was going to get me fired. I just pointed to my name tag, and in the most satisfied tone humanly possible said, "Lady, I am the manager, and there's no way on God's green earth that I'm returning an opened, 6-year-old, clearly used, dirty PlayStation." She stormed out, never to be seen again. It was glorious. Story 3. Not me, but I got a couple that I've picked up from other truck drivers shooting the breeze at restaurants. Both guys were owner-operators that also owned their own trailers, so they ran fully solo and just picked loads from a board instead of hauling company trailers and going where dispatch asked. First guy gets loaded, and after the fork truck driver hands him the load paperwork, he demands a lumper fee for the loading. Driver says no. The contract the load broker signed clearly states, broker pays all loading and unloading fees, so call them about it. Well, they call, and the broker starts humming and hawing about it with the shipper, holding the driver for ransom, basically. Driver gets fed up and tells the broker he's bailing on this load since they've wasted X number of hours. Also, a breach of the contract they signed with him, and he tells the shipper to unload him so he can leave. Shipper lady gets combative and threatens to call his company. He says, "All right then, go ahead." She calls, and his cell phone rings. He answers and shouts, "My ducking truck, my ducking trailer. Get your crap out of it." Second guy runs refrigerated freight, gets a load from a broker. They sign the contract he sends them without any fuss. Load is ice cream. In the contract he sent, it clearly states, paraphrasing, "I don't like to sit and wait for loading, unloading. If a shipper or receiver takes longer than 2 hours, you, the broker, pay me $500 per hour within 24 hours, including the first 2 hours of waiting." So the shipper takes an hour and a half to load 2 pallets. He's getting antsy about sitting so long and goes in to check on why they're so slow, and the place is empty. He goes around the front of the building and knocks on a window where someone is working inside. They tell him, "Oh yeah, shipping has left for the night. They'll finish loading you in the morning." This doesn't fly with him, so he calls the broker and reminds them of his contract terms. "It's been 2 hours now. If there's not a check deposited to my account within the next hour for $1,500, and this shipper gets their fork truck guy back out here and finishes loading now, I'm bailing." Broker says there's no chance they'll pay him anything at all for the wait. Contract be damned. So he pulls away from the dock and shoves out the 2 pallets of ice cream and leaves. Shipper later sues broker for lost product and delaying that load. Broker sues driver. Driver countersues for breach of contract and failure to pay plus all legal costs. And he won. Broker paid out the nose because they didn't read the contract. Forgot this great one guy hauls heavy equipment, gets a bulldozer that needs to go somewhere in NYC back in the 80s, has a police escort once he's off the highway and into the city, gets to about a block from the destination and can't make a turn, right angle, right-hand turn, with cars parked on both sides of both streets. Cop surveys the situation for a few minutes, sighs and asks, "How sturdy is your truck?" Guy's truck is triple framed with solid steel front bumper. Won't even ring if you kick it. Cop says, "Is those cars parked on that red paint? That's a fire lane. No parking. Push them out of the way." Guy said the first few got pushed aside by the truck. The ones nearest the corner got gouged by the bulldozer blade hanging off the side of the trailer. Cop was writing tickets and leaving them on windshields the entire time. Story 4, pissed off customer asked for the store manager's card and when he will be in so he can complain about me for charging him a restocking fee per policy. I hand him the manager's card and tell him he will be able to speak with him the following day. I am the manager. He called, I answered, he hung up. Story 5, so when I was like 12, my stepdad took my sister and I to a sand pit on the Mississippi River. We're running around and exploring and having fun, but then I get paranoid and ask him, won't they be mad if we mess up something? His response, I am they. He owned the company. Story 6, dude, holy crap, this just happened the other day. Old man comes in the pizzeria I manage. Doesn't say a thing to me, just hands me a piece of paper with numbers on it. We have a rewards program, and I assumed it was his code for a free pizza. So the first thing I said was, oh, is this your code for the VIP pizza? And he says, yeah, but I want a sub with chips and a drink. And I said, sir, this code is only for a large pizza with 2 toppings. And he starts to throw a little geriatric get fit. And of course I stand my ground because duck this guy. And he starts looking behind the counter as if to get my insider's attention. And I quickly redirect him to me, saying, and I'm the manager, so you can talk to me if you have a problem. And he basically demanded his free sub, and I wouldn't give it to him because, 1, as far as I knew, this code was only for a free pizza, and 2, he was a rude-ass mother ducker, and I'm not going out of my way for him. Sure, I could give it to him for free, but how are you that old and still don't understand courtesy and manners? He ended up taking the pizza. Damn right. Story 7. I guess I have one. Sorry, it's so long. I'm a paramedic, if you're not aware. Paramedics receive the highest level of pre-hospital training in the U.S. Yes, there may be nurses and doctors that respond, but it's not very common, so we get dual dispatched to someone having chest pain. A dual response is when they send basic life support, EMTs, and advanced life support paramedics to one call. All 4 of us arrived at about the same time. Inside is a gentleman in his mid-40s who has kidney disease, who is having chest pain. He says that he has not had dialysis in a few days, and that is why he's feeling short of breath with chest pain. The EMTs were looking through his demographic information while I was getting his medications and medical history. My partner, a relatively new paramedic and a female, was performing the EKG. When it was completed, she showed it to me looking concerned. His EKG looked like he may possibly be having a heart attack. So, giving his medical history, which was extensive, and the symptoms he had, we had reason to believe he may be experiencing a heart attack. Now, here's where it gets interesting. He wanted to go to the closest hospital, which was only 3 blocks away. The problem was that type of hospital did not have the type of cardiac interventionalist that could help him if he was having a heart attack. They would have to quickly see him call another ambulance and transfer him out to a hospital that was capable of taking care of him. We explained that we would have to take him to the closest cardiac center, which happened to be on the east side of Manhattan, at least 10 minutes away by lights and siren. He was not having any of it. In fact, his sister begins screaming bloody murder at us, cursing and saying that we were stupid and rude, that no other ambulance crew has ever done this before, and we had no idea what we were doing. Here's the satisfying part. I look pretty young. I look about 10 years younger than I actually am. I used to get to stop by truancy police when I was 6 years out of high school. So when we explain to him that he may have to go to the farther hospital, he demands to speak to someone who knows what he's talking about and points to one of the EMTs that are there. This EMT is about 40 years old, but only working for a couple years, much older than me. The EMT calmly walks over to him, steps directly in front of me between the patient and says, "Oh, you would like to speak to the highest medical authority on scene," and then takes one side step to the right and pushes me forward in front of him. Then says, "And by the way, he has the most seniority in the room. He's been in EMS for almost 10 years. The patient stammered and then declared that he wasn't going anywhere, and he wanted to speak to his doctor. I told him I would do him one better, that I would call our doctor, who is my boss, that I work under her medical license, and she could speak with him. I followed a regular procedure of calling our physician over the phone and transmitting the EKG so that she can review it. She agreed that he had some signs of what may be a heart attack on his EKG. For you medical professionals, he had Saint segment elevation in the anterior leads and lots of other pathology. And as you know, there is no reciprocal change. And we weren't sure if it was just LVH or a STEMI. He still was being stubborn and demanded to be sent to the closest hospital. So, over the recorded line and having him sign a couple of pieces of paperwork absolving us of responsibility, we transported him to the closest hospital. We called the hospital ahead so they knew that we were coming with a possible heart attack. As soon as we walked in, the doctors and nurses demanded to know why we brought someone who was having a heart attack here. We explained the situation and they did their own EKG and immediately told the patient the exact same thing that we have been telling him, that he may be having a heart attack, that heart muscle is dying, that he may die if enough heart muscle dies, and that he needed to be emergently transported out of this ER to a cardiac center, and that the wait might be so long that he make it worse. Old boy, did he apologize. He apologized profusely. So did his giddy sister. But they did get an old EKG and compare the two. And it turns out that he was not having a heart attack, but just has an abnormal EKG. Either way, I couldn't help but have a smug face while he apologized. Story 8. I managed a grocery store in high school. It was a small place with 2 registers up front, and the manager had one at the service, video rental counter. There were a number of times where I'd be covering a register for someone's break and get an unruly customer who demanded a manager. I'd tell them I would call the manager over to the counter for them. I'd walk right over with them, open the locked door to the office, and come out to the counter with a crap-eating grin and a "How can I help you today?" Story 9. Close. Was working at a chain bookstore in the same town that the CEO lived in, and he would frequently come into our store to get things. Had a customer blowing up at me over a return, and that an exception should be made, because he knows the CEO really well. They go way back. Not the first time I've heard similar things. It didn't help he got the CEO's first name wrong. I wish I could have some sort of memento from this, but the CEO was in the store that day. The CEO was in the very line for the registers that annoying customer was holding up, with demands to return something he didn't buy from us. I knew the customer was full of crap, since they had the name wrong, and ignored his good friend in line. So it was nice to ask why he didn't say anything to his pal. It was nice when the CEO came up to us at the registers to ask if they needed help. And it was nice to have 2 store managers stand there confirming that he was talking to the CEO and was caught in the lie of knowing the CEO to demand a return. Story 10. I was working as the shipping manager at an aluminum remelt facility. We usually shipped sows, 1,800 pounds aluminum ingots basically. My department was always understaffed, and I, the biggest, fastest forklift in the department, parked by my office. So I'd usually load trucks myself while my guys were trying to prepare stage loads. Truck goes through security and all that jazz. Get back to me. And the driver decides he's not going to wait for me to get over there. He's just going to rummage around and try to find the switches to open the gate and roll up door. Walk in on random driver rummaging around my office, basically trying all the buttons like an idiot. Ask him to go sit in his truck, as our insurance company doesn't allow for drivers to be out of their truck. He gets all pissy, can't back up for crap, but eventually gets to the dock, kind of crooked but workable. Gets back out of the truck to help me load it. Tell him no, he needs to sit in the truck, and he starts flipping crap that he won't let some git kid, I was 22, load his truck so he can get a ticket, blah blah. I grew up with trucking, so I kind of understand his point. Tell him fine, but he needs to stay behind a giant yellow rail. So I start loading the truck with my usual pattern. I know what the load weighs and what each stack of materials I'm putting in weighs, so I'm using a pattern that will make the truck legal and symmetrical. He's getting the whole time he don't like how I'm loading it. Tell him that if he doesn't want me to load it this way, fine, I'll stack it however the hell he wants. But I'm not going to adjust or anything. After the fact, he'll have to live it. He demands to speak to my manager, explain I am the manager. He calls me a ducking liar and calls the phone number listed for shipping manager on his paperwork. Cell phone rings in my pocket and he backs off a bit and chuckles that he thought I was just a kid. Get the truck loaded his way, which probably had close to 40,000 on the drives, and he goes to our scale. That doesn't give axle weights, only gross. So he comes back and wants me to adjust a little off the drives just to be safe, which would mean unloading and reloading the whole truck. I remind him he demanded it loaded this way, and I have other trucks to load, so no. He starts flipping crap again, and I tell him that there's a truck scale down the about 5 miles, and they can axle it. He's kind of happy with this info and that it's close and leaves. That scale is the state dot scale. Got a call the next morning because he was trying to stick us with the ticket. Didn't work, but was hilarious. That's the story in as small a nutshell as I can manage. Guy was there almost 3 hours just bickering over every little thing, and wanting things moved a couple inches on the truck. Story 11. I do tech support for a company. Our product comes with a 1-year warranty to protect against defects. This is an electronic device, so with advances in tech, we aren't going to offer a longer warranty, nor are we obligated to, period. Sorry, old people who don't understand that. Our customer service department is literally 2 people, myself and 1 other person. We both know all the ins and outs of the company, and they give us equal power, basically meaning we're both managers who are equal to each other. Our boss basically reviews the contacts and makes sure things run smoothly, and thankfully, they almost always do. People contact us because something is wrong, and in some cases, I tell them, sorry, the product appears defective. Unfortunately, your product is outside warranty, so we cannot replace it for free, but we can gladly offer a discount for the purchase of a replacement, like 30% off. Most people are fine with that, if people are actually cool about it and aren't complete crap heels. I'm also authorized to let them have a free replacement out of warranty. I use this authority regularly. It's not like I'm a total a-hole, but almost every day I'll be dealing with a customer, and when I tell them they are not in warranty, they basically say, that's ridiculous. Let me talk with your manager, so they can actually do something for me. And every time I just say, sir, I am the customer service manager here, and then deny them a replacement and explain to them the warranty policy, which is in the product book and on our website. They get so mad and incredulous that I won't just give them the free stuff they're entitled to. People will lose their product, then insist I give them a free one. Losing crap isn't a defect. Maybe with your brain, but not our product. Demand I go to my next manager up the chain. There isn't one. Get mad, saying how they'll leave bad product reviews everywhere online. They never do. Personally threaten me over a $150 electronic device that is in no way any kind of life-impacting, highly important product, saying they'll get me fired, like my bosses didn't ducking, tell me to follow the policy they made, threaten to go to the Better Business Bureau. Again, they never do, or the complaints have absolutely no merit. Say they were going to contact the Attorney General for their state to sue our company. I don't know what people think the Attorney General is, but that ain't it. Threaten to spam customer service with fake emails. Joke's on them, I can spot their fake-ass emails and just delete them and block their normal email. They normally send at most 5 to 10 emails and then quit. Hell, I've even had a guy threaten to DDoS our website. Good luck, if we didn't give him what he wanted. This genius wrote us from his real Twitter handle and email before threatening us, and even gave us his address in the first email, because he assumed he'd be getting his free stuff. Joke's on you. We have records of you threatening a federal cybercrime and have your address. Forwarded that along to the relevant parties. No idea how it wound up, but he did quit emailing us through it all. I just laugh in my mind because me following our warranty policy has exactly a 0% chance of getting me fired, in trouble, or even making me feel bad, really. I've dealt with tech customer support. Long enough I have almost no faith in humanity left, and have no respect for anyone who doesn't have respect for me, or show even an ounce of humility. Oh no, poor baby broke his toy and is demanding a free one. I'm so scared. I know your parents never told you no as a kid. Customer name here, but I'm not giving you crap, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. This whole customer is always right mentality is a ducking cancer on the service industry that needs to just die already. And every single time I deny someone for being outside warranty and get to tell them I am the manager, it never stops feeling amazing, even after 4 years. Working for a company with an actual backbone is so refreshing. Story 12, I was working in the local dairy. A lady came in wanting to buy some chewing gum. She didn't have enough on her, so went to go get some more money out of her car and tried to take the gum with her. I asked her if she could leave it inside while she went and got more money. She got highly offended, asked to speak to the manager and all, and then stormed out. Later that day, she called the owner of the dairy, who told her I was only doing what I was told. The next day, the gum lady rang me and apologized. Story 13, worked in retail, specifically a specialist bra fitting shop. One day I was working the change room desk upstairs, taking bookings for fittings and helping the 10 or so customers in the room. For people who didn't need a fitting but needed me to just quickly check things sometimes and fetch different sizes, etc. It was busy, and a woman came in on the lunch rush and demanded a fitting. I politely told her that I was very sorry, but all the fitters were booked and with other customers for the next hour or so. So I could help her a bit, but can't give one-to-one attention, as I'm helping all the other rooms too. So if she wants the full thing, she would need to pop back tomorrow or later. She flew off the handle, telling me how busy and important she was, that she made a special trip, she can't come back tomorrow, I should help her, etc. She was really rude, aggressive, and mean. I just politely repeated that I was very sorry, but I couldn't help her for the reasons above. We just had no free staff. She ranted a while, but then left a few minutes after she went downstairs. I got a call from one of the till girls, saying a customer was complaining about the young girl on the fitting desk who refused to help her, even though she could see spaces on the list, and had been rude and had been swearing at her, and wanted to see the manager about it. It should be noted I was about 24 at the time, but looked really young, maybe 18. She clearly had no idea I was the manager. I told the desk girl I would be down shortly. I walked down those steps so slowly with a huge, crap-eating grin to let the horrible woman slowly recognize who I was. When she saw it was me, her face was just a picture. I played along asking for a description of the girl, who was so rude, as that is very much outside our standard. I am shocked to hear such a thing happened. I was upstairs at the time, and certainly would have intervened if I had heard such a thing, etc. Crap-eating grin on full power the whole time. She had caused such a scene that all the people in the shop were staring at it. So she either had to admit she had been lying and trying to get what she thought was some poor shop girl fired, or she had to make up a description with me obviously going to be saying things like, no one here looks anything like that. Try again. She just was at a loss for words, her mouth agape, gasping for air, bright red, not making eye contact. I forget if she said anything at all, but she stood there for a long while and just left. I have never felt such satisfaction as I did, walking down those stairs, knowing what was about to happen. Story 14. I had a guy shove me and get in my face in a bar and tell me I better call security before he kicked my ass. Unzipped my jacket to reveal a logo with the name of the bar we were in. Promptly barreled him out the front door and said, "Okay, I got him." He spent the next 20 minutes begging me to be let back inside. Story 15. Worked at one of those mall pretzel stores back in high school. Not a busy mall, so there would be days where I'd open and close and be the only person there. The owner trusted me with everything, and I liked the cash under the table. This was one of those days. This particular human was maybe my third customer of the day. That's how slow it was in this place during the week. Woman walks up, orders multiple orders of pretzel nuggets, 3 large smoothies, and a pizza pretzel. "Oh, no, I was here earlier and you all were out of the smoothie mix." I'd unpaid and talked to the manager. He left a note in the drawer. "Oh, really now?" I open the drawer and grab a random piece of paper. "Oh, yep, here it is. He even said he accidentally overcharged you and to refund you back some cash." Woman snaps her hand in front of my face. "Yep, that's what happened." I done forgot about that. "Well, it's going to take me a bit to get everything together as I'm the only person here. So you want to browse around and come back in about 15 minutes or so?" "Yep, and can you throw in some extra dipping stuff for the inconvenience? Y'all shouldn't make paying customers wait like this." She waddles off to the cheap costume jewelry place across the way. I close the register, take the key, put up my back in 20 minutes sign, and go out the back door for a smoke. 15 minutes later, one of the other mall employees come out to tell me about the woman screaming in front of the store. As I walk down the corridor, I can hear it bellowing, "Hello, you were supposed to have my food. I've been waiting all damn day." "Hello, pretzel girl." I come out of the back room. "Can I help you?" "Git. I want to talk to your manager. He told me I could have free crap and then you run off without giving me anything. Your ass is done. You is fired." "Listen, lady, you're a lying piece of trash. I've been here all day. I am the manager as far as you're concerned, and the owner of this place wouldn't let anyone get free crap or prepay. You want to come up here and waste my time? Then I'm going to waste yours right back. If you don't stop screaming at me, I'll just have my friends in security remove you." 20 minutes later, she was being led out by the real police, and not just mall security. Sadly, for as slow and empty as this mall usually was, seeing someone getting escorted out by the local police wasn't an uncommon sight. Story 16. Wasn't me, but I worked at a clothing retail store where one of my managers used that line. It was a busy day, and we had a special promotion where we were handing out promotional cards at the front of the store, and the customers could text a code and receive either 15, 20, or 25% off of their total transaction. A teenage girl was at checkout and had a decent amount of clothing. I was ringing up and then told her the total. There were multiple people waiting in line, and it must have been a 4 to 5 minute wait for each customer next in line. Me trying to speed the process, I already asked to see her code from her phone that she texted to scan for the discount. "I tried texting the code, but it didn't work," she stated. This isn't the first customer I had to say this, so I proceeded with the prompt. "You may have to go to the front of the store and try it as some people aren't getting signal back here," reply. She slightly scoffed and gave the teen girl eye roll and started trying on her phone again. "Can't you just apply the 25% off code?" she said. Another FAQ from the workday. I told her that I unfortunately need the barcode to scan to apply the discount. At this point, she's getting pretty irritated. I get where she's coming from, though. She's holding up a line, she's embarrassed. All her friends probably left her to go to Starbucks to get their extra venti, 3 pumps squad goals, sprinkle of leggings, and Ugg boots macchiato. So I called the nearest manager walking by just to give her relief and do that thing where the manager is just going to say the same exact thing I told her. But like I said, speeding up the process here and eliminating steps. "Hey, fake name, her promo thing isn't working. She's not getting the barcode to show up." Fake name pops over into the till and says, "You can either go to the front and try pulling up the code up there, or you can pay and bring your clothes back when it works, and we can do a price adjustment." The girl looks back quickly into the sea of people staring at her, then back to my manager. "Can't you just have your manager do the code?" she says. Fake name responds with, I am the manager, and no, I can't. His abruptness showed that we have to get through these customers, and a resolution needed to be sought out soon. Well, what do you want me to do? It's not my fault that your code doesn't work on my phone, she replied. Probably the best line I've ever heard from Fake Name is what happened next, with his quick reply of, I don't know, I don't make cell phone or cell phone towers, and walked away mic dropped to go do more important things. We lost that sale. Story 17, worked at a repair shop as a youngling, 20-ish, looking teenish. The old farts never gave me respect. They came in, I greet them, and they immediately go to the other old fart behind the counter to ask basic questions that I could easily answer. Well, the other old fart behind the counter was busy and a new hire, and I had seniority, though not manager. They asked about a price for a brake line repair. I told him that I would have to inspect the vehicle first, so I can give him an accurate estimate, but he insisted on a rough estimate. I gave it to him, and he shook his head no and laughed, looking at the other old fart. I told him, he can't help you. This is the average price. Could be more, could be less. The other old fart told him that I was right, and he left. Still leaves a bitter taste in my mouth when old farts judge me based on my age, thinking I don't know anything. Story 18. I used to work in the box office for an MLB team. The actual manager was usually extremely busy and couldn't easily respond to issues at 15 different windows, so we frequently pretended to be each other's managers. It was the easiest way to get back up when an annoying customer would not accept one of our policies. On one night, I was helping a very drunk customer who refused to accept a policy. I don't remember exactly what it was. He asked to speak to the manager, but he and everyone else around me were crazy busy. So I turned my back on the customer, turned back around, pretended to be a different person, and backed myself up. He accepted this without issue and went on his way. Story 19. IDK. If this counts, my job is kind of weird. I currently work third shift at a gym. I'm the closest thing to management until someone comes in at like 9 a.m. This is the easiest job I've ever had. So at midnight, I have to close down the pool. I usually wait till like 12:15 a.m. since there's a nice old man who works out in the pool, and some days it takes him longer than others. He knows the pool closes at midnight, but I also know he's like 80-something, and I'm being as polite as I can. So one night, I'm closing the pool, and he's in there, and so is a family who was making the biggest mess of the pool area, like they were at a hotel or some stupid crap. I also have the power to kick people out of the gym if they are being disrespectful. I let everyone know that the pool is closed and they have to get out, and I go back to my post at the front desk of the gym. 10 minutes later, who I can only assume is the father of the family come up to me and starts screaming at me that I kicked his family out of the pool. He wanted to talk to management, and I told him that I am the closest thing to management until someone comes in on the morning. And if he wants to complain more to call in the morning after 9 a.m., he tells me that he can't call because he works all day. This is fairly normal for me to hear for a lot of people that come into the gym at night, so I'm used to it. I don't know exactly what his issue was, since this is a practice I've done every night that I work since February. Then like 15 minutes after that, I see the family leave as a group. 15 minutes after that, the old man comes out of the locker room with all of his stuff. He's holding plastic things in his hands and sets them nicely down on my counter. Apparently, when I told them the pool was closed, the kids and the parents removed the plastic parts of the jets that circulate water in the pool. He went through the entire pool and picked them up for me so they wouldn't get sucked into the filtration system. He also told me that I kicked them out of the pool because apparently I was being racist. Are you ducking kidding me with this bullcrap? He's really sweet, and we need more geriatric people like him in the world. I then write a note to my assistant general manager about what happened along with the pieces of the pool. I don't have a swimsuit at work, so I couldn't put them back on myself. In the note, I explained what happened. I get a text from him in the morning. He didn't call because he knew I was sleeping for work the next night. My AGM told me that they did call and yell, but he totally defended me. But seriously duck people who try and use the race card. Story 20. Kind of different, but at my work, we don't have to wear the uniform. We could just wear our regular clothes. Also, I am an assistant to the owner of this place. Let's just say it's a local cafe. So I work on the laptop a lot answering emails and things like that. Mind you, I am of legal age, but look really young, pre-teenage. One day, a customer came in with her kids while I was working on the laptop at one of the tables. Her son looked to be around 2 or something, came up to me, and to be friendly, I stopped working and said, "Hey bud, want to go look at the food on display and you can pick out what you want?" The mom was smiling the whole time as I showed him the food on display, and she kept telling me, "I am so sorry for him bothering you. You look so busy with your homework. Do you go to insert name of junior high school a few minutes away?" I told the lady I was actually an employee there and that I was actually assistant to the manager. She apologized profusely for thinking I was younger and interrupting my work, and gave me a tip for being nice to her son. Story 21. I was an auto parts store manager. In that retail setting, you don't see too many female employees. And when some customers come in, female customers usually being the bigger offender, they want to talk to a male employee. In this case, I was working with another employee, a female manager, when a guy came in and started asking her questions. He clearly knew little, as he was the one asking questions. Our female manager was answering them, but the guy didn't like or believe the answers coming from her. I was in the back around the corner, but listening to the conversation. The guy said she clearly couldn't help him, and he needed to talk to a man. I came out from around the corner about this time, and the customer came down to the register where I was standing. He started asking me questions about parts, and I told him, that is a good question. Let me ask our expert. And I called over our female manager. Customer got all huffy and said we were running a 2-bit store and that we didn't know anything. He told us he'd visit out competitor and then left. That coming from the guy asking the questions, not giving the answers. I really don't like those kind of people. Story 22, we're at a festival and out of cheese for our burgers. Truth to be told, the sign did say that the burger would have cheese, but it wasn't actually called a cheeseburger. I'm not going to pay 3.5 tokens for a burger if there's no cheese on it. Enter Get. Get here is being increasingly difficult because of the lack of cheese, which he saw wasn't being put on burgers, and at which point, the girl at the counter said that, indeed, we were out of cheese. If there's no cheese, I demand a discount. Okay, goes the girl at the counter. But that's not how this works. Either you pay for the burger anyway, or you're not getting the burger at all. Oh, but I think you can do something about that. You could let me pay only 2 tokens, because we all know that cheese is the most expensive part of the burger. This conversation has now been going on for 2 minutes or so. People are getting annoyed and Get won't leave, still demanding his no cheese burger for a reduction. I was busy with other things, so I was initially confident the girl would have sorted it out by now. Then comes the mistake. It's not that your manager is around or something. Just give me the burger for that amount. Customer is king. You can do it. I look up from my work, which annoyed me. I had way too many mouths to feed and wait a little time, and throw a glance of doom. No, she can't. It's processed cheese. It doesn't even factor for half a token worth of materials on the burger. People heard me saying that on a rather loud tone. They look at me, at him, back to me. Guy is having none of it. But if you're the manager, I'm sure you can do something about the price, eh? The smile that followed that, repeated so many times, I'm sure the tape's broken sentence was so disgusting that I really had to hold myself together, not throwing a piping hot burger at his face. Number, I will not. Either you buy the burger or you don't. And with the way you're treating my colleague right now, I actually don't even want you around anymore. You're not acting like a king, but more like a damn a hole. Go get your food somewhere else. You're clogging up the line for people who are willing to pay. Silence. Then, with slitted eyes, you wait, a hole, I'll get you. What's that? Well, yes, that did sound like a threat. And with give or take 50 witnesses, yeah, some people actually waved him goodbye with their mouthful of burgers when security removed him. Story 23. Yesterday, an elderly man in a wheelchair came into my restaurant. He was very animated, saying stuff like, I don't need no menu, I just want to know where the food at. And when I tried to sit him at a large table that was close to the door, bathroom, he exclaimed, don't seat me there, looking like the Last Supper for me. I sit him at a 2-top, and I can already tell the female server whose section he is in is not happy. About 10 minutes after his food comes out, another female server, a stocky female rugby player, comes up to me and says that she will be taking over the table. The man has been licking his lips and saying things to the first server like, are you on the menu tonight? And, let me get a slice of you for dessert. So I take a stroll. How's the food, sir? He actually has the gall to complain the greens in his salad are too bitter. I can have the kitchen remake that for you with romaine. The reason I came over here is that you're making some comments that are making one of my servers very uncomfortable. What's that? What did you say to me? Now, I raise my voice so that the next 10 to 15 tables can hear me. You're making lewd and improper comments to one of my servers, which is why I had this table transferred to another server. You need to comport yourself like a gentleman in my establishment, or I can wheel you out the door. The choice is yours. I'm dressed in plain clothes as opposed to all black. So, as he's about to ask to speak to a manager, he clams up and does awkward seal face. I clocked out about a half hour after this nonsense. The guy had not said anything to the new server, like at all. Then suddenly snapped and yelled, Get my check, I asked you 30 damn minutes ago. Server 2 went to get change from the bar, and after about 1 minute of waiting, he said, Duck it, I'm done with all y'all gets, and wheeled out, leaving the server actually quite a nice tip. Accidentally, I assume. Story 24, Army Lieutenant. Mid-20s, but looked late teens, accosted by new Sergeant Major during physical training, not wearing any rank. Hey you, come here. Yes, Sergeant Major. I'm not standing at parade rest when he's talking to me, which irks him. What is this? Are we buddies? I smile and shake my head. I think what you mean to say is, are we buddies, sir? Someone chimes in. "That's Lieutenant Roughneck 16, Sergeant Major." "Oh," he salutes me. I salute back, and I'm back on my way. I got crap all the time for looking young while in the Army. Story 25. My brother and I worked as lifeguards at a little community pool. The working situation was such that I, the elder brother, was the pool manager, and my brother was the only employee. Also important to note is that my brother and I look very different. So if you don't know us, you may not know we are related. The incident in question happened on the busiest day of the year, with close to 50 people in pool. So while I'm trying to watch all the small children in the pool, this man in his mid-30s does a flip off the diving board. So I try to express to him politely that we do not allow flips. Unfortunately, the man henceforth referred to idiot decided he didn't like my tone and starts to give me a lecture on customer service. I truly could give no less ducks about idiot's rant, but he is being distracting while I'm trying to keep an eye on a little girl with some questionable swimming skills. So I told him that lifeguarding is not a service industry and that I don't care about his feeling. He then began to yell about talking to my manager, so I said, "I am the manager. Get out of my pool." To which he responded by storming off to find the number for the manager. So idiot approaches my brother to try to contact the pool manager, me, and tries to wheedle the other lifeguard onto his side. My brother was having none of it and gave the man my number. He eventually left, but not before making another scene, yelling about poor service and stupid a hole lifeguards. Needless to say, he was not allowed to return.